What kind of walking is that, janitor? This is a military training area, not a place for civilians to wander around.
Sorry.
A simple woman was mocked at the range until the SEAL commander froze at her tattoo. Emma Rodriguez endured daily humiliation from Lieutenant Colonel Thompson at Fort Carson, dismissed as a simple cleaning woman who had no place discussing military matters. When Thompson challenged her knowledge of weapons at the firing range, Emma shocked everyone by field stripping an M4 with the precision of elite special forces, then revealed the tattoo that made the SEAL commander's blood run cold. The morning sun cast long shadows across the Fort Carson firing range as Emma Rodriguez pushed her cleaning cart past the assembled soldiers, her gray janitor's uniform making her invisible to most of the personnel preparing for weapons qualification. At 34, she moved with a quiet efficiency that came from years of making herself unnoticed, but those who looked closely might have noticed the way her eyes automatically assessed tactical positions and the unconscious precision in her movements. 3 years she thought emptying a trash can near the weapon station. 3 years since Afghanistan, since the ambush, since they buried the truth along with my team. "Watch where you're going. Cleaning, lady," barked Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Thompson as Emma's cart accidentally brushed against his equipment bag. "This is a military training area, not a place for civilians to wander around." Emma murmured an apology and continued her work, but Thompson wasn't finished. He'd been making her life miserable for the 6 months since she'd started working at Fort Carson, using every opportunity to remind her and anyone within earshot that she didn't belong in a military environment. "I don't know why they let people like you work on base." Thompson continued, his voice loud enough to draw attention from the other soldiers. "Women who've never served, never sacrificed, never understood what it means to put your life on the line for your country." The soldiers around him shifted uncomfortably, recognizing the cruelty in his tone, but unwilling to challenge a superior officer. Private Martinez, a young soldier from Texas, looked particularly uncomfortable as he struggled with his rifle maintenance. Emma kept her head down and continued working her hands steady, despite the familiar sting of humiliation. Under her sleeve, the Navy SEAL Trident tattoo seemed to burn against her skin, a reminder of who she'd been before Thompson's betrayal had destroyed everything. If you only knew she thought watching Thompson preen for his audience. If you only knew that I was there that night in Kandahar, that I heard your brother Marcus calling your name as he died, that I know exactly what kind of commander you really are. Thompson was a decorated SEAL commander with 3 combat deployments and a chest full of ribbons that told the story of a distinguished career built on other people's sacrifices. He was also the man whose cowardice had killed her team and destroyed her life. "Maybe you should stick to cleaning toilets," Thompson said with a laugh that his subordinates felt obligated to echo. "Leave the real work to real soldiers." Emma finished emptying the trash can and moved on to the next station, her expression neutral, despite the rage building in her chest. She'd endured worse than verbal abuse, but Thompson's words cut deep because they echoed the official verdict that had forced her into this exile. Soon, she promised herself, "Soon you'll remember who I am." The weapons qualification was proceeding poorly, with several soldiers struggling to achieve even basic marksmanship standards. Emma watched from the sidelines as young privates fumbled with their M4 carbines, their inexperience evident in every movement. She'd seen this before in adequate training, insufficient range time and instructors who were more concerned with following protocols than actually teaching soldiers how to survive. "This is pathetic," Thompson announced, his voice carrying across the range. "Half of you couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, and the other half can't even properly maintain your weapons." Private Martinez was having particular difficulty with his rifle, which had jammed during the qualification course. Emma watched as he struggled to clear the malfunction, his movements becoming more frantic as Thompson's criticism grew louder. Double feed malfunction, Emma diagnosed automatically. Worn extractor spring probably hasn't been replaced in months. "Give me that weapon," Thompson snapped, snatching the M4 from Martinez's hands. "This is basic maintenance, soldier. If you can't handle this, how do you expect to survive in combat?" Emma found herself stepping forward before she could stop herself. "Sir, if I may, the bolt carrier group needs to be—" "Excuse me." Thompson turned on her with fury in his eyes. "Did I ask for your opinion, cleaning lady?" The range fell silent as every soldier turned to watch the confrontation. Sergeant Williams, a veteran of 2 deployments, frowned as he studied Emma's posture. Something about the way she carried herself didn't match her janitor's uniform. "I was just trying to help, sir," Emma said quietly. "The weapon has a double feed malfunction that requires—" "You were just trying to help?" Thompson's voice dripped with sarcasm. And what exactly would a janitor know about military weapons? Emma met his gaze steadily, feeling something shift inside her chest. For 6 months, she'd endured his abuse in silence, but watching him humiliate a young soldier who was struggling with equipment she could fix in seconds was more than she could bear. "More than you might think, sir," she said quietly. Thompson's eyes narrowed as he sensed a challenge. "Is that so? Well, why don't you enlighten us then? Show us what a cleaning lady knows about weapons maintenance." Emma looked around the range at the faces watching her. Martinez looked hopeful. Williams appeared curious, and several other soldiers seemed genuinely interested in what she might do. She could walk away, return to her cart, and continue the quiet exile that had become her life. Or she could show them who she really was. "I'll need to borrow a rifle," she said. Thompson laughed, a harsh sound that echoed across the range. "By all means, let's see what you can do." He handed her an M4 carbine, expecting her to fumble with it like the untrained civilian he believed her to be. Instead, Emma's hands moved with the fluid precision of someone who'd handled such weapons thousands of times. The field stripping began with a motion so smooth it seemed choreographed. Emma's fingers found the takedown pins without looking, separated the upper and lower receivers with practiced ease, and removed the bolt carrier group in a sequence that took less than 15 seconds. "Jesus," whispered Sergeant Williams, recognizing the movements of someone with advanced military training. The range fell completely silent as Emma laid out the components with military precision, then began the reassembly process. Her movements were economical, efficient, and absolutely professional, the work of someone who'd been trained to maintain weapons under the most extreme conditions. 15 seconds for disassembly, 12 for reassembly, she announced, handing the completed rifle back to Thompson. The double feed was caused by a worn extractor spring. Private Martinez wasn't doing anything wrong. His weapon needs maintenance. Thompson stared at the rifle in his hands, then at Emma, his expression shifting from amusement to confusion to something approaching alarm. "Where did you learn to do that?" Emma rolled up her left sleeve, revealing the tattoo that had been hidden beneath her uniform, a Navy SEAL trident surrounded by names and dates that told the story of missions that officially didn't exist. "The same place you did, sir," she said quietly. "Coronado." The blood drained from Thompson's face as he recognized the tattoo, the dates, and the implications of what he was seeing. The silence on the firing range was deafening as Thompson stared at Emma's tattoo, his face cycling through emotions, confusion, recognition, and finally, terror. The other soldiers sensed something significant was happening, but couldn't understand the sudden shift in their commanding officer's demeanor. "That's impossible," Thompson whispered, his voice barely audible. "Phantom is... You're supposed to be... dead." Emma finished, her voice carrying a cold edge that made several soldiers step back involuntarily. Yes, that was the official story, wasn't it? Much easier than explaining what really happened in Afghanistan. Sergeant Williams stepped closer, studying Emma's tattoo with the eye of someone who'd served with Special Operations Forces. "Ma'am, that's a SEAL trident. Those dates, Operation Nightfall." Emma nodded, watching as recognition dawned on Williams' face. He'd heard the stories, whispered tales of a female SEAL operator who'd vanished after a classified mission went wrong. "You're her," Williams said, his voice filled with awe. "You're Phantom." The other soldiers began murmuring among themselves, the name spreading through the group like wildfire. Even the youngest privates had heard stories about Phantom, the ghost operator who could appear and disappear without a trace, who'd completed missions that officially never happened. Thompson's hands began to shake as the full implications of Emma's presence hit him. She wasn't just any former SEAL. She was the operator from Operation Nightfall, the mission that had haunted his dreams for 3 years. "You can't be here," Thompson said, his command authority cracking. "Your file is classified. You're not supposed to exist." "And yet here I am," Emma replied, her eyes never leaving his face. "Cleaning up your messes just like I did in Kandahar." Word was spreading beyond the firing range as soldiers from other units began arriving, drawn by reports that Phantom, the legendary SEAL operator, was at Fort Carson. Emma found herself surrounded by a growing crowd of military personnel, all eager to see the woman whose exploits had become the stuff of legend. "Ma'am," said Captain Sarah Chen, a military intelligence officer who'd rushed over from the headquarters building, "is it true? Are you really Phantom?" Emma looked at the faces surrounding her young soldiers who'd grown up hearing stories about her missions. Veterans who'd served in the same theaters where she'd operated, officers who'd read classified reports about her capabilities. "I was," Emma said simply, "before Lieutenant Colonel Thompson decided that his career was more important than his soldiers' lives." The accusation hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Thompson's face went pale as he realized that his past was about to catch up with him in the most public way possible. "That's not... You don't understand the pressure I was under," Thompson stammered. "The intelligence was questionable. The timeline was impossible. The intelligence was solid." Emma cut him off, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd been there. "I verified it myself. But you were so concerned about your promotion timeline that you ignored the warnings and sent us in anyway." Emma pulled out her phone and played an audio file that made Thompson's knees buckle. It was a voice that several of the older soldiers recognized, Marcus Thompson, the lieutenant colonel's younger brother, recorded during the final moments of Operation Nightfall. "Marcus Thompson, team leader, Operation Nightfall," the voice said, distorted by static and gunfire. "If anyone hears this, my brother knew. He knew it was a trap and he sent us anyway. Tell our families. Tell them we died because he cared more about his career than our lives." The crowd of soldiers fell silent as they processed what they just heard. Thompson's own brother dying in an ambush, condemning the man who'd sent him to his death. 5 good soldiers died that night. Emma continued, her voice steady despite the emotion behind it. "Including your brother. They died because you ignored intelligence warnings and sent us into a known ambush." Thompson collapsed onto a nearby bench, his face in his hands. The weight of 3 years of suppressed guilt crashed down on him as he realized that his reckoning had finally arrived. "I've lived with that guilt every day," Thompson said, his voice breaking. "Have you?" Emma asked, her tone skeptical. "Because from where I sit, it looks like you've been living quite well. Promotions, commendations, a nice, comfortable command position. Meanwhile, I was discharged on trumped-up charges to keep me quiet about what really happened." Sergeant Williams stepped forward, his expression grim. "Ma'am, if what you're saying is true, this needs to be reported to the Inspector General." "It's already been reported," Emma said, pulling out a tablet. "I've spent 3 years gathering evidence. Every communication, every decision, every moment when he chose his career over his soldiers' lives. It's all here." The crowd pressed closer as Emma displayed the evidence, classified documents, communication intercepts, and testimony from survivors that painted a damning picture of Thompson's actions during Operation Nightfall. "You have 24 hours to submit your resignation and request a court-martial," Emma told Thompson. "If you don't, I'll release everything to the media and let them sort it out." As Emma walked away, the crowd of soldiers parted before her with the respect due to a genuine hero. Thompson sat alone on the bench, surrounded by the echoes of his own failures and the weight of justice finally catching up with him. Thompson didn't sleep that night. He sat in his quarters staring at his service record and the commendations that had been built on lies and the deaths of good soldiers. The weight of 3 years of suppressed guilt crashed down on him as he realized that his reckoning had finally arrived. At dawn, he made his way to the base commander's office, carrying a resignation letter that would end his military career and a request for court-martial that would likely send him to prison. But as he approached the building, he found Emma waiting for him on the steps. "I thought you might try to run," she said, her voice calm but watchful. "Where would I go?" Thompson replied, his voice hollow. "You have everything, every communication, every decision, every moment of cowardice. There's nowhere to run from the truth." Emma studied his face, seeing the broken man beneath the uniform. "Your brother loved you, you know. Even at the end, even when he was dying because of your decisions, he still called you his brother." Thompson's composure finally cracked and tears began streaming down his face. "I know. That's what makes it worse. He trusted me, and I betrayed that trust for a promotion that doesn't mean anything now." Inside the base commander's office, Thompson faced General Patricia Hayes, a no-nonsense officer who'd built her career on integrity and accountability. Emma sat beside him, no longer the invisible janitor, but a decorated veteran whose testimony would carry the weight of truth. "General," Thompson began his voice steady, despite the magnitude of what he was about to confess. "I need to report a serious breach of military protocol and ethics that occurred during Operation Nightfall in Afghanistan 3 years ago." Hayes listened in growing horror as Thompson detailed his actions, ignoring intelligence warnings, overriding safety protocols, and sending a SEAL team into a known ambush because he was under pressure to show results before his promotion review. "5 soldiers died because of my decisions," Thompson concluded, "including my own brother. I've spent 3 years covering up the truth and allowing an innocent operator to be discharged to protect my career." Hayes turned to Emma, her expression grave. "Chief Petty Officer Rodriguez, is this testimony accurate?" "Yes, ma'am," Emma replied, using her former rank for the first time in 3 years. "I have documentation to support every claim." What followed was a whirlwind of activity, as Hayes initiated a full investigation into Operation Nightfall. Military investigators descended on Fort Carson, interviewing witnesses, reviewing classified files, and piecing together the truth that had been buried for 3 years. Emma found herself at the center of the investigation, no longer hiding behind a janitor's uniform, but testifying as the decorated SEAL operator she'd always been. Her evidence was overwhelming. Communications, intercepts, mission reports, and testimony from surviving team members that painted a clear picture of Thompson's negligence. The intelligence was solid. Emma testified before the investigating panel. "We had confirmed reports of enemy positions, planned ambush sites, and recommended alternative approaches. Lieutenant Colonel Thompson ignored all of it because he was under pressure to complete the mission before his promotion review." The panel listened in stunned silence as Emma detailed the events of that night, the ambush that could have been avoided, the desperate fight to extract survivors, and Thompson's brother's final radio transmission condemning his actions. Despite attempts to keep the investigation classified, word leaked to the media, and the story of Operation Nightfall became national news. Thompson found himself at the center of a scandal that rocked the military establishment and raised questions about accountability at the highest levels. Emma, meanwhile, was hailed as a hero who'd sacrificed her career to expose the truth. Offers poured in from news organizations, book publishers, and military contractors, but she declined them all. "I didn't do this for fame or money," she told the reporters who camped outside Fort Carson. "I did it for 5 soldiers who died because someone they trusted put his career ahead of their lives." The court-martial was swift and decisive. Thompson was found guilty of dereliction of duty, negligent homicide, and conduct unbecoming an officer. He was sentenced to 15 years in military prison and stripped of all rank and decorations. But as he was led away in handcuffs, Thompson turned to Emma one final time. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "I'm sorry for everything." Emma nodded, feeling no satisfaction in his downfall. "I know you are, but sorry doesn't bring them back." As Thompson disappeared into the prison transport, Emma realized that her long quest for justice was finally over. But she also understood that justice was only the beginning. Now came the harder task of rebuilding and ensuring that such tragedies never happened again. Emma Rodriguez walked through the halls of the Pentagon wearing the dress blues of a chief petty officer whose service record had been officially restored. The Navy Cross on her chest caught the light as she made her way to a meeting that would define the next phase of her career. Chief Rodriguez, said Admiral Sarah Mitchell, the Navy's first female SEAL commander. Thank you for coming. The Secretary of the Navy has authorized me to offer you a unique opportunity. The Admiral pulled out a classified folder. We're establishing the Special Operations Integration Initiative, a program to train and integrate female operators into SEAL teams. The program needs a leader with operational experience and moral authority. Your name was the only one on the list. Emma felt her pulse quicken. This was beyond anything she dared hope for. It won't be easy, Mitchell warned. You'll face resistance from traditionalists who don't believe women belong in special operations. You'll be scrutinized and challenged at every turn. But Emma had faced worse. She'd survived combat betrayal and 3 years of exile. The Special Operations Integration Initiative began with 12 female candidates at Naval Special Warfare Command in Coronado. Emma watched them struggle through training that had nearly broken her years earlier, feeling protective concern mixed with pride. They're good, said Master Chief Rodriguez, no relation initially skeptical of the program. Better than I expected. They have to be, Emma replied. They'll be held to a higher standard than any male operator. The training was brutal, designed to forge operators who could function in the most extreme environments. Emma participated in every exercise, demonstrating that she could still meet the standards she was asking others to achieve. The most surprising development came when Thompson, recently released on parole, appeared at the training facility. He'd been stripped of rank and benefits, but his parole required community service. I know you have every right to refuse, Thompson said, standing in Emma's office with the bearing of a broken man, but I'd like to request assignment to your program. Emma studied the man who destroyed her career and caused 5 deaths. Prison had changed him. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that might have been humility. Why? She asked. Because I owe a debt that can never be repaid, Thompson replied. Because maybe if I help train the next generation of operators, I can prevent someone else from making the mistakes I made. Emma weighed justice against redemption, punishment against the possibility of genuine change. You'll start as a basic instructor, she said finally. No rank, no authority, no special treatment. You'll teach weapons maintenance and basic tactics. And if you ever put your ego ahead of these operators' safety, I'll personally ensure you serve the rest of your sentence. Thompson nodded, understanding he was being offered undeserved redemption. Thank you. 3 months later, 8 of the original 12 candidates stood ready for graduation. They'd survived training that had broken seasoned male operators, proving that gender was irrelevant when it came to the qualities that made an effective SEAL. Emma stood before them, remembering her own graduation and the pride she'd felt at earning the trident. These women had faced additional challenges, knowing their success would determine the future of female participation in special operations. You're not just SEALs, Emma told them. You're pioneers. Every mission you complete, every life you save, every impossible task you accomplish will open doors for the women who come after you. As she pinned the trident on each graduate, Emma felt satisfaction that went beyond personal vindication. She'd transformed her tragedy into opportunity for others, ensuring the military would never again waste qualified operators because of their gender. Emma Rodriguez stood on the same firing range where her confrontation with Thompson had begun, but everything had changed. She wore the uniform of a lieutenant commander, now her promotion reflecting both her restored status and her success in leading the Special Operations Integration Initiative. "Ma'am," said Petty Officer Sarah Chen, one of her first graduates now serving with SEAL Team 3. "The new class is ready for weapons qualification." Emma nodded, watching 24 female candidates prepare for training that would either make them SEALs or break them. The program had grown beyond expectations, with women from all military branches competing for the chance to earn the trident. "How's Thompson working out?" Chen asked, nodding toward the former lieutenant colonel quietly instructing candidates on weapons maintenance. Emma observed Thompson, noting the patience and humility he brought to his teaching. Prison and disgrace had stripped away his arrogance, leaving someone genuinely committed to redemption through service. "He's adequate," Emma said diplomatically. "The candidates respect him because he doesn't try to be anything other than what he is, a cautionary tale about the cost of putting ego ahead of mission." The program's success had exceeded all expectations. Female SEALs were now serving in combat zones worldwide, proving their worth in the most demanding environments. The integration had been so successful that other special operations units were developing programs based on Emma's model. "Commander Rodriguez," a young voice interrupted her thoughts. She turned to see Sergeant Martinez, the soldier who'd struggled with his rifle that first day, now wearing Staff Sergeant stripes. "Sergeant Martinez," Emma said with a smile. "How can I help you?" "Ma'am, I wanted to thank you, not just for helping with my rifle that day, but for showing all of us that courage comes in many forms. My daughter wants to be a SEAL when she grows up, and now she knows it's possible." Emma felt the familiar warmth that came from knowing her sacrifice had meaning beyond personal vindication. "Tell her that the only limits are the ones she accepts. Everything else is just noise." As the training session began, Emma reflected on her journey from disgrace to redemption. The simple janitor, who'd been mocked and dismissed, had exposed corruption, transformed military culture, and opened doors that had been closed for generations. But more importantly, she'd proven that sometimes the most powerful weapon against injustice was simply refusing to stay silent in the face of wrong.